The meeting's at the point where everyone wants it to be over. Not because people don't care, they do. They've talked it through. They've named the risks. They've heard the founder's view. The operator's already thinking about the recap. Sales knows what they want. Customer success knows what they're worried about. Product knows where this could create downstream pressure. Finance has made the margin concern visible. And now the room wants the relief of being done. That's when someone says the sentence that makes everything feel cleaner than it is. Okay, so we're aligned, and everyone wants that to be true. The founder wants it to be true. The operator wants it to be true. The team definitely wants it to be true. Nobody wants to be the person who slows the room down right at the end. Nobody wants to say, "Hold on, what exactly did we decide?" Nobody wants to make the meeting feel heavier than it already is. So the room moves on. The recap goes out. The owner starts working. A few people leave with slightly different versions of the decision in their heads. Sales thinks one thing. Product thinks another. Customer success heard a different boundary. Finance remembers the risk. The founder remembers the intent. And the operator remembers the whole messy conversation and quietly knows they'll probably be translating it later. For a day or two, it looks fine. Then pressure shows up. A customer asks for an edge case. A manager who wasn't in the room asks what the decision means for their team. Someone wonders whether the founder still needs to approve the uncomfortable part. Someone else says, "I thought we decided this, but I'm not totally sure how far it goes." And now the decision is back. Not because people ignored it, not because they didn't care, not because the meeting was useless. It's back because the room never gave the decision enough language to survive. And that's what I want to talk about today. The 5 closure sentences. Not as a script to sound clever, not as a framework to make meetings feel more formal, as plain language that protects a decision from decay once the room moves on. Welcome back to the Hidden Drag Brief. My name is Warren Wojnowski. Last episode, I talked about the difference between a decision going quiet and a decision actually closing. And the line I used was this: quiet is not closed. A room can go quiet because people genuinely understand the decision. But it can also go quiet because people are tired, polite, uncertain, deferential, or just ready to move on. So quiet alone doesn't tell you much. The better test is what happens after the meeting. Can the team act from the decision? Can the owner keep it moving under normal pressure? Can people explain the trade-off without softening it? Does the founder stay out of the parts they meant to delegate? Does the operator have to keep translating what everyone thought was decided? That's where you find out whether the decision actually closed. This episode builds directly from that, because if quiet isn't closed, then what helps closure happen? My answer is simpler than most people expect. A decision needs the right words in the right places. Not more words, not a longer meeting, not a new operating system, not a polished memo for every small call, just enough closure language to help the decision hold after the meeting ends. That's what creates closure confidence. Closure confidence is the team's belief that a decision will stay made under normal pressure. Low closure confidence sounds something like, "Should we check with the founder before we move?" Whereas high closure confidence sounds like, "This fits the decision we made, keep going." That's a very different operating signal. And this is where the decision half-life comes back in. Some decisions stay clear for months. Others lose half their clarity by Wednesday. The 5 closure sentences help extend that half-life. They help a decision survive the normal pressure that shows up once people go back to work. A customer pushes, a founder has a concern, a team member wasn't in the room, a cost becomes visible, an exception appears, a manager needs to explain the call. That's when the closure gets tested. And if the decision doesn't have the right language around it, the decision starts to decay. The words fade. The trade-off blurs. The owner gets uncertain. The founder gets pulled back in. The operator starts translating. And the team starts acting from fragments of the conversation instead of the decision itself. So today, I want to walk through 5 closure sentences, and I want to be careful with the word sentence. I don't mean one perfect sentence that you memorize and recite. I mean 5 pieces of closure language a leadership team can use to help the decision travel. The wording can change. The shape can change. The decision can be either simple or complex, but the job of each sentence is consistent. Each one protects the decision from a different kind of decay. The first protects against topic drift. The second protects against fantasy. The third protects against authority drift. The fourth protects against casual reopening. And the fifth protects against memory-based execution. So that's it. That's the episode. 5 sentences. 5 ways decisions decay after the room moves on. And the 5 ways to make closure more real. Let's use one example throughout. A founder-led company is trying to decide whether to keep supporting a custom onboarding path for larger customers. Sales likes the custom path because it helps close bigger deals. Customer success hates it because every large customer arrives with slightly different expectations. Product is frustrated because onboarding exceptions keep turning into feature pressure. Finance is starting to see margin erosion. The founder still likes the idea of being flexible for strategic customers, but they're also worried the company is becoming too custom too early. The operator is trying to bring this all together without making it sound like sales is reckless, customer success is resistant, product is inflexible, finance is blocking growth, or the founder created the problem. That is a very normal kind of leadership conversation. There are real, genuine trade-offs. No one is entirely wrong. Everyone has a defensible view, and that's exactly why the decision needs closure language. Because without it, the team will leave the agreement in tone and ambiguity in practice. They'll say, we're going to be more disciplined about customer onboarding. And that sounds fine, but it won't be enough. Sales will wonder what more disciplined means when a strong prospect is pushing. Customer success will wonder whether they can still say no to customer steps. Product will wonder whether onboarding exceptions are still allowed to influence the roadmap. Finance will wonder whether margin thresholds actually matter. The founder will wonder why the team keeps checking back. The operator will know exactly why. Because the decision didn't close. It just got named. So here are the 5 closing sentences. The first one is, what we've decided is. This sentence protects against topic drift. Now that sounds almost too simple, but it's often the sentence the room avoids. Because saying what we've decided is forces the team to move from the subject to the call. And those aren't the same. A topic is custom onboarding. A direction is we need to be more disciplined. A concern is we're creating too much operational complexity. A preference is we'd like to keep flexibility for strategic customers. Those are all useful, but they're not the decision yet. The decision might be, what we've decided is that custom onboarding will no longer be offered as a default path for large customers. It'll be available only when the deal meets the strategic account threshold and the exception is approved before the proposal is sent. Now the room has something to work with. Not perfect, not complete, but much clearer. The reason the sentence is uncomfortable is that it exposes whether the room actually has a decision. Sometimes you try to say it and realize that you can't. You can describe the issue, you can describe the tension, you can describe what people generally prefer, but you can't say the decision cleanly. And that's not failure, that's very useful information. It means the conversation isn't done yet. After 40 plus years around leadership tables, operating reviews, founder decisions, and messy handoffs, I've learned to trust the awkward pause more than the polished recap. Because the awkward pause is when the truth shows up. Someone says, okay, but have we actually decided? and the room gets a little tense. Good. That tension was already there. The sentence just helped make it visible. And if the decision can't survive being said plainly, it probably won't survive being acted on. So sentence 1 is, what we've decided is, it protects against topic drift, it keeps the room from confusing discussion with decision. The second sentence is, the trade-off we're accepting is, this sentence protects against fantasy. And this may be the sentence a lot of teams skip, because a decision without a named trade-off invites everyone to keep trying to preserve every option. In the custom onboarding example, the team might decide to limit custom onboarding. But if they don't name the trade-off, sales may still behave as if flexibility is available when the deal is big enough. Customer success may behave as if standardization is now the priority. Product may think exceptions are no longer their problem. Finance may think margin protection won. The founder may still expect strategic judgment case by case. That's how the decision starts to split. Everyone heard the direction, but they didn't hear the same cost. So the second sentence matters. The trade-off we're accepting is that we may lose or slow down some large deals in order to protect implementation capacity, margin, and product focus. That sentence changes the room. It tells sales, yes, that may make some deals harder. It tells customer success, yes, your capacity concern is real. It tells product, no, every custom request isn't automatically a roadmap signal. It tells finance, margin protection is part of the call. It tells the founder, this decision means we're choosing some discipline over some flexibility. That's closure. Not because everyone loves the trade-off, they may not, but because they know what the trade-off is. This sentence is uncomfortable because it removes the fantasy version of the decision. The fantasy version is where the company gets all the upside and none of the cost. We'll standardize onboarding but still close every strategic deal. We'll protect product focus but still accommodate every important customer. We'll improve margin but not change what sales can promise. We'll delegate authority but still let the founder shape every edge case. That is not a decision. That is a wish. The trade-off sentence forces the adult version of the decision into the room. And yes, it can feel blunt, but it's usually kinder than letting people discover the cost later through confusion, frustration, or blame. This is where a lot of post-meeting drag starts. Not because people disregard the decision, because they were still quietly protecting the part of the decision the room never admitted it was giving up. So sentence number 2 is, the trade-off we're accepting is. It protects against fantasy. It tells the team what cost they're actually choosing. The third sentence is, the owner of this call is. This sentence protects against authority drift. Notice the wording, not just the owner of the work, the owner of this call. And that distinction is everything. A lot of teams assign work without assigning decision authority. They'll say customer success owns onboarding, or operations owns the process, or sales owns the customer communication. Fine, but who owns the call when the pressure shows up? Who decides whether a specific customer qualifies for custom onboarding? Who decides whether sales can include custom language in the proposal? Who decides whether product needs to get involved? Who decides whether the exception is contained or has become a broader pattern? If nobody owns the call, the decision will drift back to the founder, the leadership team, or the operator, and then everyone will wonder why the decision didn't hold. In our example, the sentence might be, the owner of this call is the COO. Sales can request an exception before proposal, but the COO owns whether it qualifies. The founder is consulted only if the deal exceeds the strategic account threshold or creates a commitment outside of the current product roadmap. That's more than task ownership. That's authority language. It tells the team where the call lives. It tells the founder when they're involved. It tells sales where to go. And I don't mean that in a sarcastic way. It tells customer success the decision won't be negotiated after the promise is already made. It tells product they won't be pulled into every customer-specific request by default. and it tells the operator whether they're actually empowered or just expected to clean up the ambiguity. This sentence is uncomfortable because it exposes authority friction. Sometimes the room says someone owns the work, but behavior says the founder still owns the uncomfortable call. Sometimes the founder believes they've delegated authority, but the team has learned to route decisions back anyway. Sometimes the operator is expected to drive the outcome without having the right to say no. Sometimes the team wants ownership to be clear until the decision gets risky. And that's where the sentence earns its keep. The owner of this call is. It's not administrative, it's behavioral. It asks when this gets uncomfortable, who has the right to keep the decision closed? And if the answer is unclear, the decision may have an owner on paper, but not in practice. And paper ownership doesn't create closure confidence. Real authority does. Low closure confidence says, can you check with the founder before we send this? High closure confidence says, this fits the rule, the owner can decide. That's what we're after. So sentence 3 is, the owner of this call is. It protects against authority drift. It keeps the decision from floating back to whoever has the most power, memory, or anxiety. The fourth sentence is, this decision will reopen only if. This sentence protects against casual reopening, and this may be the most important sentence for extending a decision's half-life, because decisions don't need to be permanent. In fact, quite often they aren't. But they do need to know what would legitimately bring them back. Without a reopening rule, almost anything can reopen a decision. A nervous comment, a founder reaction, a new edge case, a louder customer, a different interpretation, a team member who wasn't in the room, a Slack thread that starts with just checking. And to be clear, sometimes a decision should reopen. New information matters. A risk can become real. A pattern can emerge. A threshold can be crossed. A customer segment can behave differently than expected. A decision can be right on Monday and need review a month later. That is not a problem. The problem is casual reopening. The problem is when the team doesn't know the difference between new information and discomfort. So the fourth sentence creates a boundary. This decision will reopen only if 3 qualified opportunities are blocked by the new onboarding rule within 60 days, or if support load from approved exceptions exceeds the capacity threshold that we've set. Now the team knows what counts. Sales knows when the decision can come back. Customer success knows what evidence matters. Product knows what pattern would trigger review. Finance knows what cost threshold matters. The founder knows they're not being cut out, but they're also not reopening the decision through every concern. The operator has a rule to point to. That's powerful, not dramatic, just useful. This sentence is uncomfortable because it limits the organization's favorite escape route. A lot of teams keep decisions psychologically open because it feels safer. If the decision gets hard, they can revisit it. If someone gets uncomfortable, they can revisit it. If the founder has a reaction, they can revisit it. If a customer complains, they can revisit it. That flexibility feels reasonable in the moment, but over time it teaches the team that decisions don't really stay made, and so people start hedging. They bring options instead of recommendations. They ask for reassurance before acting. They keep the founder close. They avoid saying no too firmly. They protect themselves. That's what happens when closure confidence is low. The reopening sentence helps rebuild it. It says, we're not pretending the decision is perfect. We're saying what would make it worth revisiting. And that's a healthy standard. It also makes waiting cleaner. If something doesn't meet the reopening rule, the team doesn't need another philosophical conversation. They can keep moving. If something does meet the reopening rule, the team can bring it back without making it personal. That's the balance. Firm enough to hold, honest enough to adapt. So sentence 4 is, the decision will reopen only if. It protects against casual reopening. It helps the team distinguish discomfort from new information. The fifth sentence is, the decision now lives in. This sentence protects against memory-based execution. It sounds practical, almost boring, but it matters more than people think. Because if the decision doesn't have somewhere to live after the meeting, it usually lives in someone's memory. And memory is a very weak operating system. People remember different places. They remember the part that affected their function. They remember the founder's tone. They remember the objection that wasn't fully resolved. They remember the version that protects their team. They may even remember what they hoped the room meant. That's human, but it's not stable enough for decisions with real operating consequences. So the fifth sentence gives the decision a home. The decision now lives in the onboarding decision log. The COO will post the final language today. Sales will use that language in proposals starting tomorrow, and any exception requests will be added there before the proposal is sent. That sentence helps the decision move from memory into the system. It tells people where to look. It tells new people how to catch up. It tells the operator they don't have to personally re-explain the call every time. It gives the decision a place to survive normal pressure. This sentence is uncomfortable for a different reason. It makes the decision real. A decision that lives nowhere can stay fuzzy. People can interpret it, people can soften it, people can say, I thought we meant. People can reopen it quietly. But once the decision has a home, the room has to look at what it actually said. That can feel exposing. It can also be a relief, because now the decision doesn't depend on the operator carrying it in their head. It doesn't depend on the founder remembering the intent. It doesn't depend on everyone having been in the room. It has somewhere to live. So sentence 5 is, the decision now lives in. It protects against memory-based execution. It gives the decision somewhere to survive after the meeting. Those are the 5 closure sentences. What we've decided is, the trade-off we're accepting is, the owner of this call is, the decision will reopen only if, the decision now lives in. They're simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. Not at all. Each one creates a different kind of discomfort. The decision sentence forces clarity. The trade-off sentence forces cost. The owner sentence forces authority. The reopening sentence forces discipline. The decision home sentence forces the decision into the system. That's why these sentences work. Not because they sound polished, because they close the exits where ambiguity usually escapes. And that's the central argument of this episode. A decision doesn't need more words. It needs the right words in the right places so it doesn't decay the minute the room moves on. That language creates closure confidence, and closure confidence extends the decision's half-life. A decision with closure confidence doesn't need the founder to keep reapproving it. It doesn't need the operator to keep translating it. It doesn't need every edge case to become a fresh meeting. It doesn't mean the decision is perfect. It means the team knows how to act from it until something legitimate reopens it. That's the difference. And it matters a lot in founder-led companies because decisions often depend too much on presence. Who was in the room? How did the founder say it? What did the operator understand? Who knows the backstory? Who can read the room? That can all work for a while. It may even feel fast. But as the company grows, decisions can't depend on shared memory and personal interpretation forever. They need to travel. A sales manager needs to explain the decision to their team. A customer success lead needs to know what promise they're inheriting. A product manager needs to know whether the exception changes the roadmap. Finance needs to know what margin rule matters. The operator needs to know whether they can protect the decision. The founder needs to know when they're involved and when they're not. That's why closure language is not bureaucracy. It's how the decision becomes usable. Now, I can already hear the objection. This feels like a lot for every decision. And I'd agree, so don't use this for everything. In fact, please don't. If you use the 5 closure sentence for every small operational call, people will tune out immediately. Use them where decisions keep coming back. Use them where a priority has already resurfaced twice. Use them where the founder keeps getting pulled back in. Use them where the operator keeps translating. Use them where sales, product, customer success, finance, or delivery keep acting from different versions of the same decision. Use them where the decision has cost. Use them when the next step isn't the problem, but the call underneath the next step is still not holding. That's where these sentences earn their place. So they don't need to be heavy, they just need to be honest. For a smaller decision, the whole closure might be 5 short lines in a recap. What we've decided is that we're standardizing onboarding for this customer segment. The trade-off we're accepting is that some larger deals may slow down or require earlier qualification. The owner of this call is the COO. This decision will reopen only if 3 qualified deals are blocked or support load exceeds the threshold. The decision now lives in the onboarding decision log, and sales uses the updated language starting tomorrow. That's not exactly a huge artifact. That's a decision that can travel. And once you get used to it, it's often faster than the alternative, because the alternative is rarely nothing. The alternative is follow-up, clarification, sidebars, rework, founder check-ins, operator translation, a second meeting to interpret the first meeting. Boy, do I know that one well. The closure sentence may feel slower in the room, but it's usually faster in the system, and that's the part that I'd pay attention to. A leadership team can save 5 minutes in the meeting and spend 5 hours cleaning up the ambiguity afterward. Or it can spend 5 extra minutes closing the decision and give the work a better chance to move. That's the real trade, and this is where operators often feel the pattern first. They can sense when the recap is going to create work. They can sense when "we're aligned" means 3 different things. They can sense when the founder's nod didn't actually transfer authority. They can sense when sales heard permission and customer success heard caution. They can sense when product is going to get pulled into something the room never named. They can sense when the decision is going to come back. The 5 closure sentences give the operator a way to slow the room down without making it personal. Instead of saying, "I don't think we're actually aligned," which can sound accusatory, they can say, "Before we move on, can we put this into closure language?" Or, "Let me test whether we have the decision." Or, "I think we have the direction, I'm not sure we have the trade-off yet." That's a much easier way into the conversation. It keeps the focus on the decision, not the people. It makes the hidden ambiguity visible without blame. And it gives the founder a cleaner way to support real delegation. Because founders often don't realize how much their teams are still reading between the lines. A founder may think, "I already said that we should standardize." The team may hear, "Standardize unless the founder really wants the deal." The founder may think, "I gave input." The team may hear, "Approval required." The founder may think they own it now. The operator may know they own the task but not the call. Closure language helps reveal that gap. Not perfectly, not all at once, but enough to make the next decision cleaner. And that's all we're really trying to do here. Make the next decision cleaner. Give it a longer half-life. Create enough closure confidence that people can act without constantly checking whether the decision is still real. So here's the practical move I'd leave you with. Think of one decision from the past month that came back after the meeting. Not a giant strategic transformation, just one decision that seemed made but didn't hold. Maybe it came back in Slack, maybe it came back through a founder check-in, or maybe it came back when a customer pushed. Maybe it came back because 2 departments interpreted it differently. Maybe it came back because the operator had to explain it again. Now, test whether these 5 sentences existed. What we've decided is, the trade-off we're accepting is, the owner of this call is, this decision will reopen only if, the decision now lives in. If 1 or 2 of those are missing, then that may be exactly where the drag entered. If all 5 were missing, well, the meeting may have ended with agreement, but the decision probably never had a fair chance to hold. And if this does sound familiar, don't start by trying to diagnose the whole company. Start with one priority or decision that keeps coming back. The hidden drag diagnostic helps you see whether the drag underneath it is decision drag, alignment drag, structural drag, human drag, or a mixed pattern. It takes you about 7 to 10 minutes. You'll find a link in the description. And if you'd like to engage with me directly, the diagnostic is still the best place to start. I personally review every submission and I respond back directly. So don't make it theoretical. Use a real priority. Use a decision that seemed to close but keeps resurfacing. Because once you can see where the closure broke down, you can stop relying on the room feeling settled. You can give the decision enough language to survive the meeting. Thanks for listening to the Hidden Drag Brief. My name is Wojnowski. I'll see you next time.